Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, hi! My name is Natasha and it is fantastic to have you here. For today's video, we are going to be counting down my top disappointing decks from the year 2022. So please keep in mind, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions, my personal reasons why they are disappointing to me. So with that being said, if you love these decks, if you have them and you enjoy working with them, that is perfectly fine, perfectly valid. But I'm going to go into depth as to why each of these are on my disappointing list for that year. Now, it seems that they've all come from one publisher, so if you know, you know. If not, we're going to go through it. But there weren't a lot of decks that I was terribly disappointed in that I reviewed. Now, these are only decks that I have reviewed on my channel, so I might not have gotten to every new release in 2022, but that is what we're doing today, just the ones that I have reviewed on the channel for that year that came out in 2022. So with that, let's get into it. We're going to count down and we're going to start with number 5. All right, my number 5 is the Hocus Pocus Tarot Deck and Guidebook. Now, it is my number 5 because I still love it and I find it highly usable. It's great, except I am still disappointed in a few things, which we'll go into. So this is written by Minerva Siegel and Tori Schaefer, and it's illustrated by Dread. I absolutely love the artwork. It's so fun. It's quirky. It's so great. Love it. So published by Insight Editions, retailing for $24.99 in the US and $33.99 in Canada. The packaging is fun. It's bright. It's beautiful. It's very magical. But first off, we're going to start with the disappointment of the guidebook. The guidebook in here totally misrepresented the suits, so the minor suits. So that was confusing off the jump, but in the actual readings per card, they're correct meanings. So that was weird. And then the whole minor arcana in general was just a big disappointment. It's usable, it's fine. However, again, you'll see this as a running theme throughout the rest of the video with each other deck. There's so much material that could be used. Why are we just having a very blah minor arcana? It doesn't make sense to me. However, I'm sure there's reasons, but again, this is just my personal opinion. The major arcana was done very, very well. And some of the minor arcanas like this, perfectly fine, don't have an issue with it. But then there are some that are just so blah that I'm like, I wish they, like this one, I just wish there was more in it. Again, totally usable, totally fine, but I feel like the minor arcana always gets the raw end of the deal here. But there also was the problem with some of the court cards actually being like buildings, which again, weird choice. That could have been something else. I don't even know why maybe have the building at all. So there are some like this Justice card that I really, really do like. I feel like that was fun. This is like the only one where I'm like, yes, a building makes sense. The tower. That's totally relatable, totally understandable. And I just feel like some quirky characters got put in and I love that. And it just made sense. However, what I'm like just disappointed about the most is that I feel like the guidebook felt rushed. It wasn't really edited, I guess, in a way, like they didn't double check the editing, I feel like. And then the minor arcanas, I just feel like there could have been more to it. There could have been more fun things done. However, this is kind of quirky and fun with each of the sisters being represented as the bottles. So that was a cute little nod and a fun idea. So there are things that I really do love about this deck, and there are other things that I'm just like, why was that a choice? So again, if you love this deck, awesome. That's so valid. It's fine. But these are just many reasons why I was disappointed. I feel like there were choices that I just didn't understand. But again, shuffles just like every other Insight Edition deck. You can tell that I've been using it. Shuffles just fine. The quality is just fine. Again, matte, very easy to work with. So again, lots of choices were great. These are just some of the reasons why this was my disappointed deck for 2022. Let's move on to number 4. Okay, moving on to number 4, we have the Alice in Wonderland Tarot. This is also by Minerva Siegel and also Insight Edition published. So this retails for $24.99 in the US and $33.99 in Canada. Now, again, the reason why this is on my disappointed list is because the art is so good. The art is by Lisa Vanania. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. I do apologize. But it's so fun. The artwork is just stunning. But again, the minors leave something to be desired. This is still a very usable deck. I do enjoy it. But again, Alice in Wonderland is a movie that is very near and dear to me again. So I feel like this is just, again, me being very biased if it's not, you know, very well fleshed out with the minors. But again, it just leaves something to be desired. It's not like a terrible deck. I'm just disappointed. I feel like we could have seen a lot more action in the minors. We could have been more visually stimulated with them. Instead, we kind of got some more Pip-like decks, which again, there's nothing wrong with a Pip deck. It's just when you are wanting to get a deck that represents a pop culture movie that you love and you enjoy, I feel like it's just a little bit disappointing when this is what you are reading with. There's just a lot of material that we don't really see represented here. But again, majors are done really, really well. I enjoy them a lot. And again, the art style is just so beautifully done and so pretty. It's just, I wish there were more. So hedgehogs were the pentacles, teacups are the cups, flowers are the wands, and the spears are the swords. So again, it's very cute. It's very fun. But again, I'm disappointed just strictly because sometimes it can be hard to read with a deck like this if you are a beginner. And again, I just wanted to see more. No tea, no shade. Still a very usable deck. Just me being disappointed, that's all. And that's what you're here for. So it still shuffles really nice. Very flexible cardstock. Your Insight Edition cardstock. I feel like this is slightly thinner than the rest of them. And it still shuffles just great this way too. So that is my number 4. Let me know if any of these are on your disappointed list. All right, my number 3. It is number 3 because this one I was so excited about. I am more of a Marvel fan than I am a DC fan, but I do love all of these core characters. So again, this is published by Insight Editions. I feel like I'm just bashing them at this point, but I don't mean to. This is retailing for $27.99 in the US and $36.99 in Canada. So for this price, I'm expecting really awesome artwork, a good guidebook. Quality is great with the cardstock, but I'll get into that. So this is written by Casey Gilly and it's illustrated by 17th and Oak. And let me just say, the illustration is gorgeous. It's stunning. I do really like it. The guidebook is great too. Didn't really have an issue with anything in the guidebook. There's a lot of really good information in here. However, this was advertised as a fully illustrated deck, which, caveat, yes, it is technically fully illustrated, but usually what that means is there's a scene going into each card, right? That is what we take it to believe. And that is not necessarily the case here. So again, DC is filled with a bunch of characters and a bunch of storylines, and quite honestly, a lot of crazy storylines, right? As most comic books go. So you would expect there to be a bunch of awesome scenes to be taking place in this deck, and there just wasn't for me. However, I do love the fact that Constantine is in this and the Devil. Again, it's a pip deck. It's a pretty decent pip deck, so it's not like, you know, you can't use it. It is, however, disappointing to see that they went this route instead of actually going for more dynamic scenes. So as you can see here, the major arcana, again, they hit it out of the ballpark. It's so good. It makes sense. But the minors just lack for me. And it wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't a pop culture deck, right? So if there wasn't a lot of material there for you to want to use. So it just is disappointing when you see a bunch of awesome characters in the major, and then when you get to the minor, it's this. So that's why it's disappointing for me. And again, I am not the biggest DC fan. I love Wonder Woman, I love Batman and Aquaman, and I know a lot of their storylines. However, just because I don't know every single character doesn't mean that I can't be disappointed in the deck, especially when the minors are pips like this. So whilst, again, it's not my favorite brand, I was expecting a lot more out of it. I was expecting to have a lot of fun looking through the cards and having a fun time reading with this, having a lot of action, but it's not a terrible pip. That's why I'm just like, these decks are just disappointing. They're not terrible. They're just disappointing. So this is fun. I mean, we do have the Joker. That's a key one there, right? To have. And we do have Wonder Woman, which I do absolutely love for Justice. So again, majors are great. The minors just don't do it for me. They're not as terrible as they could be. So that's a plus. And it shuffles just fine. And I would think for like a $28 deck that this would be a lot more heart and soul into it. And that's why I'm really disappointed. You know, the other ones that we looked at, they were $25. This one's a little bit more expensive. I know that inflation caused a rise in prices, but I just don't understand why this one is that much more expensive. I would love to know if you own this deck, if you enjoy this deck. What are your thoughts? Did this one disappoint you as well? Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comment section below. Okay, my number 2 is the Weiser Tarot. So this is a Rider-Waite-Smith deck that has been recolorized. This is published by Weiser, and it retails for $22.95. So it's a little less inexpensive than the other decks that are on this list. And the guidebook is decent. It has a lot of info in here that can kind of help get you started, but they're very short keyworded meanings for each card. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of spreads in here too. So again, if this is a deck that you love or like or haven't been enjoying using, you're valid. I feel like the way that this was done, even though I give it so many props for having darker skin tones and more diversity in here, it just feels muddy in the way that the coloring has been done. It feels like it's been somebody's like coloring book, which again, if you enjoy this art, that's completely valid and there's nothing wrong with it. But for me personally, I feel like some of these cards aren't as dynamic as they could have been, as well as I feel like there have been other decks that redid the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and meanings in a more polished and more modern way. So for me, I don't know if this is necessarily a needed deck. But again, there are a lot of you that have really enjoyed this deck and have really liked what was brought to the table here. And it is a very decently priced deck. So I will give it that. There are some that are beautifully done. There are some renditions in here that are absolutely amazing. But like, for instance, this one here leaves a lot to be desired. It looks pretty muddy and dark. So again, very disappointed. This was a requested deck. This was actually a deck that I was not going to purchase because I thought it was just going to be exactly what it was, another Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So I thought, oh, I don't need to you know, have that in my collection. But it was requested a few times, so of course I'm going to check it out for you guys. And I was just really left wanting more. All right, so here is how it shuffles. Shuffles just fine. I don't have an issue with it at all as far as the cardstock goes. So if you're looking for an inexpensive deck that has diversity for the Pamela Coleman Smith imagery, this is right up your alley. However, for me, and the way my eyes read it, I was just left looking like it was a little bit more muddied and it wasn't really impressive to me. But again, just my opinion. So please let me know if you love this deck, hate this deck, or you have no opinion. Let me know down below. Okay, you know I have to throw in an honorable mention. Yes, this is an Oracle deck, but I do not have any disappointing Oracle decks, in my opinion, that I reviewed this year, so I'm throwing this in this video. So this is the Magic of Marvel Oracle. Again, this is published by Inside Editions. This retails for $24.99 and $33.99 in Canada for 44 cards and only 64 page guidebook. So right off the bat, it is pretty lacking in content for me. So the back is pretty. The art is stunning as per usual, but there was a misprint in this one. And if I remember correctly, I'll let you know which one it was. It was the quote at the bottom was the wrong quote, but it's beautifully done. Oh, I think it's Hela. Hela was not supposed to be Seize the Day. It was supposed to be another. The guidebook is just really disappointing. I would have wanted a little bit more. Okay, so see how, where did she go? So Hela's quote is, "All things must come to an end," but on her card it says "Seize the Day." So that was a misprint. Whether they fixed it or not, I don't know. But again, this calls to question the editing issue. We had the editing issue with the Hocus Pocus guidebook, and now we have the editing issue. Quality control is what I'm concerned about. So it's almost like they rushed to put this out. And so my whole thought process behind each of these decks has been cash grab. It feels very cash grabby. And a lot of you feel the same. A lot of you have given up on Inside Edition decks just because of that reason, where they continue to disappoint in quality control as well as the art that's in the deck. It feels rushed. It feels like they don't really care about the attention to detail. And when you are producing a deck that is used as a tool every day to be used, you want quality control and attention to detail, because the detail is what is going to give your intuitive hits, correct? So again, everybody has different preferences and different ways that they like to utilize these tools. And if you are just somebody who uses them occasionally, that's fine. It doesn't need to be super perfect. But again, you're paying sometimes it seems unreasonable amount for a tool to use, right? And you want to make sure that it's the characters that you know and love. You're buying it for that reason, right? So that's why it's disappointing. And for me to see just a little blurb about each character, it's a little disappointing. I would have liked to have seen like keywords maybe, or reasons why that character was chosen. An Oracle deck is fine to be a little bit more ambiguous, but for something as big as Marvel, there were a couple characters in here too that were missing. Captain America, like one of the huge characters of this whole series, especially in the movie series, is non-existent here. So I just feel like there are fantastic ones, like Loki's great, but they've really missed the mark, I feel, on this deck. That it could have been more. It could have been greater. And of all the characters in the vast Marvel universe, why 44? I don't know. 44 is not a bad number either for a deck, for an Oracle deck. So I'm not bashing that at all. Again, I guess I just feel like the quality could have been better. The attention to detail could have been better. All in all, I see a lot of my favorites in here, so I'm not super disappointed, but it just is lacking for me. So that's why it's an honorable mention. Still very, very usable, still very fun to use as a daily pull. And, you know, if you are just getting into divination, this would be great for that as well. So that's why it's an honorable mention. So if you have this deck, let me know what you think down below. And we're going to get to my number one disappointing deck of 2022. All right, number one is the Lord of the Rings Tarot. This is illustrated by Moss Hiho, which love his artwork, written by Casey Gilly. This is my number one disappointing deck because this was the deck I was looking forward to like the most besides the Hocus Pocus deck. And it just fell so flat for me. Again, this is a franchise, I'll say, that has a ton of material that they could have incorporated into the deck. Now, granted, you're not going to sift through all of that, I understand. However, there are 3 very popular movies that are done that could give you some backstory too. It just very much has been a lack for me. The artwork, again, though, is beautiful. I don't have anything horrible to say about the artwork itself. But the other thing that's disappointing, and I know that they were going for a theming around the Lord of the Rings here, but this guidebook is absolutely horrendous to try to use. It takes up so much space. It's not something that you can just easily flip right to your particular card to. However, it is color, so I'll give them that. But it just is a nuisance to try to read with, to try to utilize. There just is so much frustration in this for me that it's palpable through the screen. So that, for one, was awful for me to even try to utilize. I just gave up, got frustrated. The back. Oh, the back is so fun. It's beautiful. Thomas Hiho is the perfect person to do this type of pop culture deck. I love it. So again, majors were done so well. However, the minors, I just, again, am so frustrated because this does feel like a cash grab when you have so much potential to do an amazing, full, well-rounded deck with art, and you just limit it to some symbols. It just is frustrating. It is not bad. Again, these decks are completely usable. They're valid and all of that, but just for me personally, it was so disappointing to see all of the pip decks be just bland. Some of them, like this one, is pretty decent, pretty unique, but the court cards are great, and I really do appreciate the detail in each card. But again, I sigh. This was, let's see, I forgot to tell you how much it was. $27.99 in the US and $36.99 in Canada. Now, I don't know if that price tag is worth it with this. It's cute. It is fun. I get the theming. I get that it's a pop culture deck. I get that it's supposed to be fun. But again, there's so much material. So this in and of itself was the one that I was truly excited about. But this is why a lot of people are getting frustrated with Insight editions. Each deck, no matter how well written it is, seems to be getting to be more of a cash grab. There are outsiders to this logic, though. The Horde Tarot was really well done. A lot of you said the Garbage Pail Kids Tarot was really well done. That was one that I didn't get last year. So whilst there are outliers, the majority of this does feel rushed. It does feel like they're trying to pump them out, which I understand completely as a business point of view. But I would love moving forward with Inside Editions if they paid more attention to quality control, if they listened to their consumers about what the consumers are looking for, especially when it's a beloved franchise such as Hocus Pocus, Alice in Wonderland, and Lord of the Rings. I would love for them to actually have more interesting decks, because again, it does feel like we're paying a lot of money for bland, almost, it does feel like the minors feel like regurgitated. It feels like there's nothing new, there's nothing exciting, and at least with this one, they are oriented in a way where you can tell whether they are reversed or not. I know that in the Labyrinth Tarot, there was a lot of confusion with the reversals because there was no number at a particular top or bottom. So all of that to say is this is the reason why a lot of us are upset or concerned or just not putting our faith behind this publisher because, you know, we keep getting gutted every time. So all of that to say, those are my top 5 decks. If it felt like I was bashing on Inside Edition, it is simply just because of the decks that were coming out of that publisher. I do apologize if it felt like I was being too harsh, but again, these are just my honest thoughts and opinions. There have been so many beautiful and wonderful and exciting independent decks that have popped up that are a little bit or more expensive than these decks, and they are just worth your attention. So if you are disappointed with any of these, please go check them out. I have a plethora of independent decks reviews and unboxings on my channel, so go check them out as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I would love to know your thoughts on these decks, all of them, down in the comments below. If you have them, if you love them, if you hate them, if you are just neutral about them, please let me know all of that down there. Thank you so much for all your love, your support, and for watching and for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you guys so much. I love you and I like you. If you have not done so already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on your way out of this video. That way you will never miss an upload from me. I do have a link tree that will provide you all of my social media, as well as my Etsy shop where I do private readings, down in the description box below, as well as in the little link at the end of this video. So thank you again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.